Alô? Is this working? Can you guys hear me? Does it work? Работает. О, привет всем. Hello guys. Kiasas. Hope everyone's doing well. So it's still incredibly warm right now. It's like 34, 33 degrees, I think. Something like that. So I'll take drinking breaks. I need some water. Otherwise, it's kind of difficult, right? So today's stream is going to be same like previous ones actually. The thing is, this will be kind of difficult simply because I worked through these texts already, and they're surprisingly difficult. They use a lot of different constructions that we haven't encountered before. So it's going to be something new, something spicy. It's going to be a lot of ultra Slavonic memes, so it's going to be good. Let's see. So we're going to cover 4 different letters, right? We're going to cover fiert. And then we're going to cover... Oh, actually, I shouldn't even name them because you guys can do that. Then we have the next one, this one, h. And we have this letter, which doesn't exist anymore or isn't used anymore, I should actually say. And the last one's going to be this one. Just a few things before we start. My thank yous. I want to thank Van Dog for helping me out. Same guy helped me out before. Amazing guy, Russian native who was who knows all of these things quite well. So I worked with him. We worked through all of this stuff. So thank you very much. I want to thank my Greek friends, Julius and Leonidas, for helping me out with the Greek translations. Without you guys, this wouldn't have been possible. I also want to thank my patrons for allowing me to make videos like this, because it took me like, what was it, 14 hours to prepare this stream. So it takes a lot of time. It's a lot of searching. So these guys make it possible. Thank you very much. And last thing. Okay, I'm not a linguist. I'm not a historian. So all of the stuff that I did, I basically had to look up myself. So yeah. And guys, Daniil, привет. Sergey, привет. Mr. Nice to see you, man. Good morning. Привет тебе. And all of the guys would be on. Nice to see you, man. Nikolai, привет. And nice to have you guys. I'm really happy that I can do this and share some knowledge. Ksenia, привет тебе тоже. So, if there are any questions, just like last time, please let me know. Just type them down, write it, let me know so that I can take a look at them a bit later. And we're just going to cover everything. I included a lot of etymology, so we're going to dive a bit deeper into the text and the words. There's some beautiful words in here, a lot of Greek stuff. So let's start. So the first one. There we go. Just see. F is a fun letter for foreign words. We're going to cover that. So, first letter, guys. Does anyone know what this letter is called? In modern, well, pre-revolutionary Russian. So, not modern Russian. Okay. So this letter, let's see if someone knows. If not, I'll just say it. Okay. So, okay. Almost, Ksenia. That's extremely close. So it's not fiert with a yer. It's with a yer. So this is going to be fiert. And the name fiert is kind of it's special, right? Because we don't know where this name comes from. And the name, the evolution, we know the evolution though. So we know that this word, or the name of this letter, comes from Old Church Slavonic. And the Old Church Slavonic would be something like frita, so yer, which changed in Old East Slavic. So in Old East Slavic, this became something like ferta, which eventually became fiert. So there's no miehki znak at the end. And eventually became F, right? Which is the name of the letter that's used nowadays. But the meaning is unknown. We don't even know if it ever had a meaning. And that is because Daniel already pointed that out. The letter F isn't Slavic. Nowadays, it's considered a Slavic letter, a Slavic sound. But Proto-Slavic didn't have this sound. So it didn't even exist. Words which contained the letter F weren't from Slavic. They came from different languages. Ancient Greek didn't have the letter F, right? The letter F represented the P sound, the aspirated P. So it eventually started developing, and when the gift of writing was given to the Slavs by the holy Cyril and Methodius, right? They introduced this letter to write Greek words. So not Slavic words, but Greek words. There's some writers who basically say that the sound itself did exist in the Slavic languages, specifically the Macedonian region, but the problem was that it was an allophone, meaning that the letter V, and F were allophones. So people didn't really, it was the same sound to a lot of people back then. So it might have existed, but there were no Slavic words that contained this letter. So Sveti Kirill and Methodius, right? So the Saint Cyril and Methodius, they couldn't even pick a Slavic name for this because it simply didn't exist. So the etymology is kind of, oh, Pursa, nice to have you, man. So we don't really know where this letter even comes from. Just a sec. But there are a few theories though, and they all come from Greek. The first one is that it comes from the ancient Greek word furtis, which in modern Greek would be, well, actually, I don't know the modern Greek, but the pronunciation would be something like firtis, which has a lot of different meanings. One of them would be something like a restless person, which is what the Russian sources use. But Greek natives would say something like a person that mixes something, which is kind of weird, right? And the second option would be something like ferteros, which in ancient Greek means better or braver. So maybe it comes from that word. Third option would be something like fertos, which was the most, in ancient Greek, not in modern Greek. And then fertos, in ancient Greek means something like to bear, to carry, endure, tolerate, something like that. So in modern Greek, firtis doesn't exist at all. There's some Slavicists and philologists, especially from Russia, who basically say that this is onomatopoeic in nature, meaning that it doesn't really have an etymology. It's just like a sound that was written down. So there we go. What's my native language? Croatian. So keep that in mind, guys. The letter F is not a native Slavic sound, right? There we go. So let's go and take a look at the pictures, because there's only 4, but it's an interesting story. So the first one, this word, or this tree that we can see, is a date tree, right? And the word that's used is phoenix. So what we can see is I. This is known as I desetarichnae, which means the 10I, because the value of the Cyrillic I was 10. At least this one, which comes from the Greek iota. Phoenix, which again, this is a Greek letter, which was adopted into Old East Slavic and Old Church Slavonic, which represented the sound x. But in Old East Slavic and early modern Russian, phoenix meant a palm tree. So a palm tree, and it also meant a bird, the phoenix in English, right? The firebird. And it comes from old or ancient Greek, poinix, I think, which in ancient Greek meant purple and palm tree and date, and which is this fruit of a palm tree, right? It's shaped like an olive, and it's brown and sweet. And in modern Greek, that would be something like phinikas, I believe. But in modern Russian, this word, first of all, isn't used anymore. It's not phoenix. This would be called something like phinikovaya palma. So a palm of a phoenix. But the funny thing is that the word date itself is used. And that still comes from Greek. So phoenix is used, but phoenix isn't. And that's because the cluster, the KS cluster, is not native to the Slavic languages. This was again introduced through Greek, because when the script was introduced, the letter X was introduced as well. That doesn't mean that the consonant cluster X doesn't exist in Russian. It does in words like kstati, like by the way, but that's a combination. So that's a combination of k, stati, right? Two different words which were put together, basically. And the word date, funnily enough, comes from Old French, right? Which comes from Latin and then ancient Greek, which is dactylos, which itself comes from like a Semitic source, like Arabic, dakal, and biblical Hebrew dekal, I believe. So it has a long etymology. But in Old East Slavic, that's the thing that we will remember because it's useful for the text. It meant phoenix, like the bird, and the palm tree, or the date tree, right? Just a sec. And F was F in Greek by the time of Cyrillic. Yeah, it was, yeah. And then the next one, this is one we covered before, kind of, not really. So this is philone. Philone would be, this is known in English like a phelonion, and it's a liturgical vestment worn by priests in the Eastern Orthodox Church. And it's worn over the vestments of the priest itself. So it's on top, basically. And in the West, which we covered in the last stream, this is known like a chasuble. And that itself comes from ancient Greek, phelonion, I believe. No, phelonion. And then the next one, this is still used in Russian, it's fanar, which is a lantern. Modern day it's also like a flashlight or a street light. It comes from Greek as well. Basically, if you see an F, you can probably assume it's, or presume it's from Greek. So it comes from ancient Greek, or in ancient Greek this would be fanarion. And fanar is basically like a torch, like from the Greek origin, plus the suffix ar. And then the last one, this is kind of difficult because it's kind of difficult to see what this even is. The drawing is a bit off. But after doing some research, I basically found that this is most probably a vial, or a beaker, or a cup, something like that. And the modern Russian word for this would be fial, or fial, I should say. But in the olden days, so in Old East Slavic, this had different meanings. So it was kubok, chasha, like a bowl, or a cup, or basically it could mean a lot of different things. And this comes from Greek as well, fiali, which was in ancient Greek was a round and shallow bowl or a pan. And in modern Greek, the meaning changed. Thank you, Pursa. Which now is like a special kind of bottle or a beaker. And like Ksenia already said, and Sergey as well, perfect guys, fialki in modern Russian doesn't mean vial anymore, like fial does, but fialki means flower, or a special kind of flower, like violets, right? These are little purple flowers, they're called fialki. And we can actually encounter that in this text as well. So we're going to see that once we cover the text underneath. Olá, привет. Hello, nice to have you, man. So we have phoenix, philone, fanar, fialki. Does anyone know why this word contains the E, right? I don't think I explained why. Does anyone know why this E is used and not the other one? So basically, this I was only used when the Greek word contained iota, right? So whenever the Greek word contains iota, or the Latin words contain an I, like the E, the pre-revolutionary or pre-revolutionary Russian would use the E. The thing is, Phoenix or Poinix, I think, in ancient Greek didn't contain this E. It contained oi, which is again an innovation. Or an Old East Slavic innovation. So the original rule was whenever ancient Greek or Greek uses E or Latin uses E, we are going to use the E as well because we have 3 different types of E's, right? But you can see that that rule wasn't really, he didn't really listen to this rule. And we will see this again because look, Phoenix is written like this. And then when we look at the text itself, see, now he uses 2 E's. So it changes. It's inconsistencies. We're going to see this again and again and again. There are no set rules. It's basically whatever people want to use. So let's move on to the text. First sentence would be Fiert пишем есть. Пишем with a yer. So it's interesting, right? Because this should actually be yer. So Fiert пишем есть. So fiert is written в языку славянском. So in the Slavic language. Знать строительство в деле деревенском. So знать, to know, строительство, to handle, в деле, in things, деревенском. So in the rural things. But this is not really what this means, because the meaning is very, very, very different. And Van Dog pointed this out. So let me guys take you back. In Old Church Slavonic, all of these letters obviously had original names, right? And because of these original names, certain expressions started appearing. And these expressions were transferred into Old East Slavic, which were transferred into modern or early modern Russian. But as the revolution happened in 1917, these expressions were lost simply because the original names for these letters disappeared. But pretty much all of the old letters had some kind of expression. So in this sentence, we can actually, or in this sentence, excuse me, in the next sentence, we can actually see one of these original phrases. So let's move on. I'll cover it in a sec. So знать строительство, know how to handle your rural deeds, right? Your rural affairs. Фьертом не ходят землю орющи. So this is ch, right? So this is one of those sentences. Фьертом находят землю орющи. And фьертом находиться was one of these phrases that disappeared. Most modern Russians will not know what this means. And фьертом находиться basically means not to stand idle. Because when you stand idle, when you don't do something, most people will put their hands in their hips, right? Hand on your hips, which turns you into a fiert. Think about it, right? You're standing straight, so you're a line, and then your hands make this O shape, which you basically turn into a fiert. So if you ходить фиертом, if you're going with fiert, you're becoming lazy, you're not doing anything, you're standing idle. And this disappeared. So this phrase isn't used anymore. It stopped being used after the revolution, but a lot of these letters have these special sentences. I can give you 2 more if you're interested. Just a sec. One of these phrases is the one I use every single day. It's nayat, on yat. So the a sound, right, in Old Church Slavonic. And in pre-revolutionary Russian, nayat means well done. So if someone does something special, you would say, oh, nayat. Because back then, or especially after the 18th century, this specific a sound disappeared, right? This iye turned into a modern Russian a sound. So kids, students, had to learn all of these sounds and all of these positions of the yats by heart, meaning that they didn't simply know where to place it anymore. They had to learn it. So they had to learn different poems like bieli, bierni, bies, flies. So they could remember all of these positions. So if you would tell someone nayats, meaning he placed all of the yatses correctly, meaning well done. Another example would be something like propisать ижицу. Ижица is a different letter, right? We can find that one here as well. It's the last letter. Ижицу. So if you tell someone propisать ижицу, it basically means to administer corporal punishment. Oh, it was nice to have you, mister. See you, man. So, прописать кому-то ижицу means I will administer corporal punishment. And again, this meaning was lost. If you read Pushkin or Tolstoy, he will still use these phrases, and a lot of times modern or native Russian speakers will not understand it because the original meanings were lost. But it's very interesting. It's very difficult but interesting stuff. So every single letter had this specific phrase. So if you're interested, please look into that. It's really good stuff. So, ферта находится землю орявши. So basically, people who are plowing the land, right, орать землю, cannot stand idle because they have to work. And the second one, Господин, which means the Lord, зри, где кормлю пасущие, which means the Lord, look where I feed or keep grazing, right? Кормлю пасущие. And I thought that this could be like a reference. I'm not sure. It's just what I thought. This could be like a reference to Psalm 22, so the 22nd Psalm, where basically in Old Church Slavonic it says like, Господь пасет меня и ничтоже меня лишит, which in Russian would be «Пастырь мой, я ни в чем не буду нуждаться», and in English that would be «The Lord is my shepherd, I will not, or I shall not want». And this is because it kind of sounds like he's a shepherd, right? Because I'm grazing, right? So I keep grazing and the Lord is looking, right? That's what I thought, but I might be wrong. Then we go on. Phoenix есть древо. So phoenix, a date tree, is a tree. И phoenix же и птица. So phoenix is also a bird. The interesting thing here is that древо should be written with a yat, but this is not. He didn't pick or he didn't choose to write it with a yat. That's because, again, usage of yat is kind of inconsistent. But yeah, so вразум сотвори Господня десница. So that would be something like they were created, фразум, so in knowledge, сотвори, created, Господня десница. So Господня of God, right? Десница is the right hand, правая рука, right? So the right hand of God, which is associated with everything good. And with righteous, and a symbol of basically everything that's good. And then a very interesting one, в философии назирай вся вещи. So in philosophy, but in Old Church Slavonic and in Old East Slavic, philosophy, philosophia, didn't only mean philosophy, it also meant sciences. So in the sciences, examine everything or every matter, every cause, every action. You have to examine everything in the sciences, right? You have to be specific or accurate. This reminds me, this letter was unknown to the Slavs, right? At least most of them. And sometimes they didn't really know where to write it. So sometimes they would write something like philosophy or philosophy or philosophy. So they would mix the F, th sound, which didn't exist in Slavic. They would mix the F sound, or they would use a sound that was known to them, which was like P. Another example would be something like the name Philip. Philippe. In the olden days, it was commonly written like Pilip or Philip, because they simply didn't know how to spell it. It was like the same sound to them, right? So, okay, next one. Свободишься, свободишься, гордостные пещи, which basically means free yourself, right? Свободно, free. Гордостные пещи. This is something, it's again kind of difficult, but this is like pride, associated with pride. And pещи in Old Church Slavonic meant cave or oven, or the heat that comes from the oven when you burn things, right? So it could be like the heat of hell, or the heat of the oven, the pride that comes through this. So you have to free yourself from pride. I wonder, were there certain rules about fitafiert? Or it was different? No, it was completely arbitrary. So well, there probably was a rule. Basically, whenever Greek writes f, we have to use f. Whenever Greek uses th, we have to use th. But this didn't really happen. Some writers used it, but most of the time, there was no Wikipedia or Wiktionary or whatever, so they were, it was a lot more difficult. Basically, they couldn't just look things up, so they had to like assume or presume certain things. And then we go on. Fanar, добрый смысл. So let's finish. Fanar, добрый смысл, носи в дни и ночи. So this would be носи фонарь, so carry the lantern. Добрый смысл, of good intention, right? Because in Russian, smysl nowadays means something like sense or meaning, but in Old East Slavic, this would mean intention. So carry the lantern through the night, right? Not only through night, but also through the day. В дни и ночи. And then we go on. Филонь, фиальки, фиал, в радость, ночи. So Philonian. But look at this, right? So we have Philonь with an O. And this one has omega. So again, inconsistencies. Philonь, fialki. This is probably flowers, like in a modern meaning. So Philonian, flowers, and then vile, in, joy, radoсть. Same thing in Russian. Moshchi, to be able to. But in this case, this is probably might, sila, right? So basically, Philonian or flowers, while in joy is might. So whenever you're happy, you can find power through being happy. Basically. Okay, I see. Thank you. Don't worry about it. If there are any questions, just let me know. If there are any corrections, just let me know. Basically anything. So the next one. Oh, one last thing. Does anyone know the numerical value of this letter? Because every letter had a numerical value, right? So if anyone knows, just write it down and then we'll move on. So the next letter, this is going to be complicated as well because we don't know the meaning or etymology of this letter. So in Old Slavonic, this letter was known as her, which eventually in Russian became her. Nowadays, it means something different. Yeah, exactly, Mr. That's perfect. Oh, you didn't leave. So nowadays in Russian, it means something vulgar, but the original meaning was, well, we don't really know the original meaning, but nowadays this letter is known as ha. So the meaning is unknown. We don't know where it comes from. There are only several like suggestions or several like options. So we're going to cover those. Something rather different, yeah. So let's take a look at this. We can see this guy with a ball and the letter H, the Russian ones, and then, you know, the Greek one, again, it's the same thing. Slavic took it from Greek, and then the Polish ones as well. So what are the options, you might ask? Well, the first one is that it comes from the Old Church Slavonic cheruvim, which comes from ancient Greek cherubim, which in English is known as cherub, which is this winged creature attending God, and it's described as the second highest order of angels. And we can actually see him here, or it, I should probably say. We can see it here. So that might be the option. And this is probably the most known option because most church books, so church Slavonic books, will basically offer this explanation. But we don't really have proof of this. So they will say that here is basically it. It's basically an abbreviated form of cheruvim. The second option is, again, a Greek one. It's that it comes from the ancient Greek kaire, modern Greek here, even though it's not really used, meaning hello, welcome, or farewell, right? The hardest question for me about this letter, why do you often translate it K? Well, that's a great question. That's because when this letter was adopted into the Latin script, basically it still made a K sound. So it's often translated as K, even though it doesn't make that sound anymore. It's the same thing with philosophy, right? Why is philosophy transcribed with a PH sound in English and stuff like that? Well, that's because the Latins basically wrote it with a PH because that was the closest thing that they could use, like a P sound. But nowadays it doesn't represent that sound anymore. So the drawings, we have quite a few. First one is this thing. It's actually the same thing in Russian. So this nowadays would be hill. It's holm. And this comes from Proto-Slavic, so it's a Slavic word from holme, so tu schwaz. Same thing. And then the second one, that's this thing. This meaning changed tremendously. So in English, this is known as a gonfalon, which comes from French. And gonfalon, I never heard of this word before, so I had to look it up, but it's the standard consisting of a pole with like a crosspiece. You can't see it here, but it's a crosspiece from which a banner is suspended. And it's used in church processions, you know, especially. But in this case, it means something a little bit different, and that's choruf. So in English, that would be korov, and which basically just comes from Russian, and it's a religious banner used liturgically in the Eastern Orthodox Church. So it's kind of similar, but the banner consists of an icon of Christ, the Theotokos, so that would be the mother of Christ, right? Which is Saint Mary, or a different kind of saint. And that was rendered from Proto-Slavic, and in Proto-Slavic that would be something like choronve, and that was then transferred to Old Church Slavonic, like choruv, which eventually became chorugov. But in modern Russian, chorugov, isn't used, but they omit the o, so that would be chorugv. So it's kind of different. So this is a more modern spelling, basically, than what's used nowadays. Yeah, Mr. Exactly. Oh, привет. So, the next one is the one we kind of already covered. So this is cheruvim, which comes from ancient Greek, right? Comes from biblical Hebrew, keruv, I believe, which is a cognate with Akkadian karabu, which means to bless. So basically, as I said before, it's the second highest rank in angelic hierarchy, following the seraphim, which is the one we covered before. I think I can even find that. Somewhere in this text. Seraphim. Just don't know where it is anymore. Was it a picture? No. That's fine. Just a sec, I just need to drink some water. Oh, it's hot, man. Oof. Okay. So Cheruvim, and it's depicted usually with two pairs of wings. So this doesn't really match, but two pairs of wings with four different faces. One of a lion, which represents wild animals. One with an ox, which is a domestic animals. A human face, which represents humanity, and an eagle, which represents all birds, right? And then the next one, which comes from Greek as well, is chartia. And in modern Russian, it's still used, but it's kind of an archaic word. It's like manuscript or a charter. But in Old East Slavic, it meant parchment or document or even сообщение. So even like a message, right? And this comes from ancient Greek chartion, or in modern Greek charti. Funny thing is that in the Balkans, in Bosnia, Macedonia as well, you have the word chartia. This is only used in specific parts of the Balkans, but it's like a regional thing, and it means paper, just like in Greek. It was borrowed from Greek. Then the next one is chlieb. Same thing as in Russian, only they use a yet. So this would mean bread, from Proto-Slavic chleba. And so does anyone know where this word comes from? Because it's not Slavic. Well, nowadays it's Slavic, right? But this was borrowed from a specific language. Does anyone know? Gothic. Nice, guys. Yeah, it comes from Proto-Germanic. Let me just read what everyone said. Came back from a walk. Oh, 5 miles. Nice. Yeah, this is basically what I found on a church website. Carta Magna is Velika Hartia. In Romanian, Hartia. Привет, Grisha. So the origin I found was by Gothic, nice. Proto-Germanic. From Proto-Germanic, chlaibas. And the interesting thing is that a lot of different times, whenever Proto-Germanic has the ai sound, so not only iye, but also ai, this was rendered into Slavic as a yat. A different example would be something like Kaisar, like Caesar, which was also taken with a yat, or adopted with a yat, right? Then the next word, this is still used in Russian, holst, a canvas, but it could also mean like a specific type of cloth. This cloth used to make sacks, burlap in English. And the etymology is kind of disputed because we don't really know where it comes from. One of the options would be Hulst, which is a German word for cover, I believe. Then you have the Slavic option, chlustati, meaning to lash or to beat, right? Or an Estonian option, Hulst, I think. My Estonian is not good. And it basically means something like raincoat or even like a linen bedspread. So there's a lot of different options. We don't really know where it comes from. Then the next one, it's interesting, right? Because none of these words, well, this one come from Slavic originally. So this one also doesn't. The next one would be chamut or chomut in this text. And this is a horse collar. And this comes from Proto-Slavic chomote. And that's possibly, but we don't know for sure, early Turkic borrowing. Because if you look at a Turkic language like Tatar, for example, Tatar has the word kamut, which also means horse collar. So it might be borrowed, probably, but we don't know. And then this one, Van Dog told me that this isn't used in modern Russian anymore. That would be chort, which is a hound. So nowadays you have the word like borzaya lovchaya sabaka, which basically means like a hound, right? But the modern equivalent, or the more frequently used option, would be something like sabaka. And sabaka isn't Slavic either. It comes from Middle Iranian, sabaka, meaning dog. And sometimes a different word is used, which nowadays is kind of archaic. At least when calling a dog, you wouldn't use anymore. But you have pios in Russian, which would be pies during this period, and that comes from Proto-Slavic pesa, meaning dog. A lot of other Slavic languages actually only have one way of saying dog, and that would be pas, right? At least the Croatian does this. Pes is what Slovenian uses. Pios is male only. Oh, nice. Okay, thank you. So let's move on to the text. It's gonna be difficult. Here, so here v pismienach znaj heruvim pisati. So in the text, pismienach or letters have different meanings. In text or letters, no, znaj, so in the imperative. Heruvim pisati, how to write the word cherub. I wouldn't say pios is archaic. Yeah, some people told me that as well. Some people said it's kind of, it just sounds a bit weird, right? Maybe a bit like a pejorative. But they all told me that if they see a dog on the street, they would never say something like, oh, eta pios, right? They would use eta sabaka. And that's basically what I meant. Pez is fish in Spanish. And then the next one, posiem uzriši I хлеб где собрати. So therefore, posiem uzriši, you will see, zrить, right, to see, where, где I хлеб собрати. So where to gather bread. Therefore, you will see where you can gather bread. Every dog is assumed to be female. Okay. Pri хлебе I холст. So with, archaic word, with bread and a canvas, in this case, людям одеяние. So, which is clothing for people, something like that. Одеяние isn't really used in modern Russian anymore. You have одежда in modern Russian, which means clothes, right? Attire. But in Old Church Slavonic, you had одеяние, which basically means something like clothing. But the modern term kind of faded in Russian. So then the next one would be хомут конем хвост в употреблением. So that's kind of it's a difficult sentence because chomut koniem, well, this makes sense. A horse collar to the horses, and then it says chvost. Chvost in Russian would be something like a tail. В употребление, so a tail in usage. This doesn't really make sense. Something like horse collar to a horse, plural, horses, tail in usage. It's kind of hard to figure out what this means. So if anyone knows, please let me know. Then the next one would be hol. So this is this, right? Holm. Holm. Добродетель в полку ставь хоругвь. So this is basically a hill is a virtue. This is a calque from ancient Greek, добродетель, from evergesia, which in ancient Greek means like a good deed. So this was calqued from ancient Greek. So a hill is a good or virtue for your army, right? Because you got the upper hand, literally. V полку, which means in the regiment, put a banner. So stavь хоругвь. So in this case, it means flag, because in Old East Slavic and in Old Church Slavonic, this would just mean flag, right? Or znamya in Russian. And then the next one, по морю земли ищи си всяк другов. So on land, по морю, so this looks like one word, right? But it's actually two different words. So you have on sea and on land, look for yourself, si, себе, всяк, every, for friends. So on sea and on land, everyone has to look for friends. But then is somewhat used in some context. Okay, I didn't know that. There's a proverb, с хвоста хомут не надевают. What does that mean? Can you explain that, please? Because that might be the meaning. Okay, and the next one. This is животных, разный вид, хорт есть собака. So this is kind of a bit easier. So there are different kinds, вид, so different kinds or types of animals. Хорт есть собака. So a hound is a dog. Then в досужстве своем or своем и та не однако. So in courage, so in this case, досужстве would be courage, because in all these Slavic, it actually meant courage or skills, like in modern мужество, I believe in Russian. So in courage, in your own courage or your own skills, it is not alone. So you probably won't be alone, or it's not only alone, right? And then вся вещи в требство, требо, like in all things or affairs in need, дал Бог, this is the shortened form, noina sacra человеку. So all necessary things God gave to the people, да всем и славит, теча к сущу веку. So this is very, very complicated. I had to ask a lot of different people. We're not sure. But basically it means something да всем и славит. So this would be kind of understandable. So South Slavic, so that everyone can celebrate. But then теча и сущу веку. So this is coming к, so to, сущу веку, so the true time or period or century. So what we think, or at least I think right now as well, is that this means the second coming of Christ. So a time that is permanent instead of temporary, because we all live, we all die. So that we are flowing towards, or that we're coming towards a true future time in which there will be a second coming of Christ, in which everything will be eternal. That's at least what the text says. So that's what I gathered, that's what I understood. But it's a very, very difficult construction. Вся вещи в требство дал Бог человеку, да всем и славить теча к сущу веку. So everything that's needed, God gave that to the people so that they could celebrate until the second coming or a future time, right? Something like that, I think. So yeah. Next one. This one. One of my favorite letters. Does anyone know what this letter means, or the name of this letter? Pursa. Oh. No, this letter is known as ot. Actually, it has 3 different names. But the one, I think about the proverb. Okay. Amiega. So one of the names is Amiega. Second one is ot. Actually, the first one is ot because that's the original name. I think about the proverb about studying. Okay. I will look it up. Maybe, I think you're correct. Just, I have to look it up. Maybe it's... Maybe that's exactly what this means, right? Would be interesting. So let's start at the beginning. In Old Slavonic, this letter was known as ota, and it was basically copied from Greek, just like most letters. And it was copied and known as ota, meaning from. But quite quickly, or quite soon, it actually got a second name, and that is amiega, which is omega, right? Because the original Greek letter was known as omega. And then it got a third name, which is a calque from Greek. because what does omega mean, or where does it come from? What's the etymology? It comes from omega, right? Omega, which means the big O. And this name was used to distinguish it from the small o, which was known as Omicron, right? So small o, big O. So the in all these Slavic, they basically calced this, and it got On Veliki. So you had three names: Ota, Omega, and On Veliki, all for the same letter. So yeah, and it had a numerical value of 800. So three different names for this letter, and they would use them, whenever they wanted. If they wanted to use Omega, they would use that one, and then Ot, they would use it different times. But around like 1400, 1500, I believe, these names stuck to certain forms of the letter Omega. So as you can see, the Omega actually consists of two different letters: O, like Omega, plus Tviarda, right? Which, when put together, means Ot. So in this form, this big form, the name Ot was used from, and in a smaller form, without the capital T, like we can see right here, the letter Omega, the name Omega, was used. So without the Tviarda, it was Omega. With it would be Ot. So let's move on to the pictures. Okay, so the first one, like exactly, shta, like in Old Bulgarian it was shta. I think in modern Bulgarian as well, right? They use a shta, and in all these Slavic that would be shcha. So the first one, again, this is inconsistent. The usage was inconsistent. So, and this one starts with the Omega. This one starts with the O, or On. Again, O, but as we can see, just a sec, let me find it. So, Ostin with an O. I think we will encounter it later. I just cannot see it right now. But it was completely arbitrary. So whenever the writer wanted to use Omega, he would use that one. If he wanted to use the O, he would use that one. Nowadays, there's actually rules in place. So if you write modern Church Slavonic, which is used in all of the Orthodox churches, you cannot arbitrarily use any form you want anymore. There are set rules that you have to listen to and adhere by. I can explain them if you guys are interested. I don't know. If you are, just let me know. Otherwise, let's move on. The first one is okrin. And this, in Old East Slavic, is a vessel. And in Old East Slavic, it also meant something like a bowl or a cup. And in Ukrainian, there's actually still a word that's used, which is basically the same, which is krinka. And that would be like a clay milk pot. So in Ukrainian, this is still being used, while in Russian, it kind of fell out of use. And then this word, the next one, that would be ожерелье, and that's a necklace or a collar, which basically comes from o, which means around, and gerlo, meaning crater, orifice, or mouth. Nowadays, there's also like a French word for this, which is collier, I believe, which comes from French collier, but this isn't used as much. So this form is kind of still quite prominent in modern Russian. Then we have this one, which is obruch. In Old East Slavic, this had a lot of different meanings. One of them was a wrist, or a bracelet, or even a ring, which in modern Russian is kольцо. But the modern Russian word for this would be bracelet, which comes from French. Bracelet, I think. But the word itself, obruch, comes from Old Church Slavonic, which had the word obronche, meaning ring. Modern Russian uses it, but the meaning changed. So the modern Russian meaning would be a hoop, like a hula hoop, like when you're playing with it. That's what it means nowadays. So the original meaning of bracelet or ring faded. It's not used anymore. Now we have this one. So this is ostien, and that's a goad in English. And it's this large pointed stick, which is used for prodding animals. And the modern Russian word is really hard to find. It took us quite a lot of time. One of the options is like striekala, which comes from Church Slavonic, Old Church Slavonic, I mean, strekala. But it's most Russian people don't know it. And then like a description of this tool would be something like dvozubnoye, zubnie vili, right? Because it's basically vila with two teeth at the front, like a pitchfork, but with two, right? We can use for prodding animals to move them and stuff like that. Then two different ones, which are also really hard to find. First one is osti or ostie. The modern Russian word, even though most people don't know it, is ost. And Dog found this in a museum, like a picture from a museum. And so it is a modern word, but no one really uses it. And nowadays, or at least in Old East Slavic, it meant rake. So in Russian, that would be grable. Probably comes from ostry, meaning sharp. And then the last one, which I couldn't find in any dictionary, Old Slavonic or Old East Slavic or modern Russian, doesn't matter. I couldn't find it anywhere. So this is obyazala, which means something probably like a rope, right? Which comes from Old Slavonic, obyazati, so with a nasal a, and it means something to fasten, right? To tie or to bind. So this is probably some kind of fancy rope or something like that. Sergey, I use ost, but only as a part of a plant. Interesting, I didn't know that. I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I used like 10 different dictionaries, but none of them contained this one. But osti, yeah, we found this in a museum. Besides this verb now in Russian. Yeah. Wikipedia article for kettle prod, but the only languages is English, Finnish, and Hebrew. Yeah, Ksenia, exactly, yeah. It's a verb now in Russian, like to make someone do something. But it also means to fasten someone, right? To bind someone. Vezati in Croatian. So, the text. Ot, so in this case, we would read this as ot. Ot stverdom в речи разность межд имеют. So, ot with tverdom, so this is probably all with a T, in a word or speech. And in all these Slavic, this also meant word. So it wasn't only slovo, but речи also meant word or words. Разность между, between, имеют. So от with a T in speech or word, there's a difference between them, right? Is a professional word for long nails and wheat plant. Oh, nice. Interesting. I didn't know that. And on this one, this is really complicated. От кого и ох печаль в людях деют. So this would mean something like oh, from whom or what, and so that sound, like when you're exhaling, like oh, right? Interjection, something like that. And from whom or what, and oh, sadness or suffering in people do. Yeah. If anyone understands this, that would be amazing, because I have no clue. And from someone or what, I see where the M for and T comes from. T literally serves an end. I och, pechal. So och pechal makes sense, right? Like exhaling and sadness in people gives or does. And then od Boga, shortened form, milost. So from God, mercifulness or mercy. O njej blagodari. So be thankful for her, and her means milost because it's a feminine word. So be thankful for God's mercifulness, right? Kako pred njim žить, so how, перед in modern Russian, in front of him live, or где, where, всегда, always, говори. So this is again kind of complicated. It would be something like how and where to live in front of him, right? Перед ним жить. Always speak, like где, where, always you have to speak. So maybe like to speak about God to others, or something like speaking positive to different people about him, or about religion, or just about life. This could have a lot of different meanings. And then, let me just see the questions. Oh, I see. Are there any Arabic loanwords in Russian? So in modern Russian, there are, like kaif, comes from Arabic. Almaz, I think that's not from Arabic. I think that's a Turkic source, but I might be wrong. Let me check. Now I'm interested. Almaz. No, it comes from ancient Greek. Almaz comes from, at least, no, it says Persian. Wait, what? Okay, so one option is ancient Greek, the other one is Persian. The ancient Greek one is Adamas, which comes from Persian almas. But I don't know which one came first. But there's some ones, yeah. There's definitely like a few. What keeps me fascinated is that the young Tsar children understood all of this. Yeah, it's insane. It's just like 300 years ago, right? Every word that begins with alcohol, unexpected alcohol. I don't know if alcohol comes from Arabic. Let me check. It does. Wow. Derived from medieval Latin, alcohol, transmitted in medical or alchemical literature from Arabic, alcohol, from Andalusian Arabic, kuhul, kohul. Wow, interesting. I didn't know this. Okay. So yeah, there's some. Definitely. There's more like loanwords from Polish and German and Dutch, but definitely some Arabic ones as well, yeah. So, obruč, gotov, ljubvje, netěrzané. Another very difficult sentence. So this would be something, a bracelet is done. Obruč, right? So this is done. Ljubvje, so this would be like the accusative of love. Love netěrzané. So love for the not tormented, because this is like the, if there was an M here, I remember Doc saying this, with an M, this would be something like a dative plural, right? So that would make sense, but doesn't. So love to the not tormented. It's very difficult. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense, at least not to me. And then this, ожерелье ti, this is the old South Slavic form. So a necklace to you, честь, слава, избранные. So this would be like honor and glory, you shall wait, or you are chosen, right? Actually, изобрать, right? So honor and glory to the chosen ones, something like that. Allah is not part of the word in Arabic. Captain looks like German borrowing from Kopf. Dutch has kapitein. But a lot of words related to like the sea and boats and stuff come from Dutch, because Peter the Great studied in the Netherlands. So he took a lot of these terms from the Dutch language. The next one would be wieczna instead of wieczna. So this is the short adjective form. Wieczna блаженстве оюндачаеши. So this would be something like wieczna, so eternal. Блаженстве, so this would be eternal bliss. And then this is an interjection, so a different form of the omega, only used for interjections. So something like ole, something like that. O young one, this is the archaic word for young one. So you can, or you shall, in this case, wait. And this is the Church Slavonic form of to wait, right? An example of this would be from the Nicene Creed, point 11. It has Chаю воскресения мертвых, which means I'm awaiting the awakening of the dead, right? And it's basically like ждать in modern Russian. So I'm waiting. So you have to wait. You shall wait. How would one use кайф in a sentence? It's not a noun. No, it's used like это кайф. It's cool. Something like that. It's slang. Modern Russian slang. And then the next one would be приятельство, где взем да величаеши. So this would be where, где you have the pleasure. Just a sec. So where you have the pleasure, you will celebrate. Величаеши. So you will celebrate or glorify or something like that. Кайф is an Arabic word. Yeah, exactly. И надеяться. Надеяться. And then we have the next one, which is this tool, right? Остень. Остен. Остен. Лениву. So this means лень, lazy. Something like the goat. Lazy. Ослу соделася. So this would be something, the goat was created, соделася, made or created, ослу, dative, for or to the horse. So a goat was created for the lazy donkey. So because he's not moving, this goat was created to prod him, right? So he would move. And then the next sentence actually relates to the previous one. Умну встанству топ не годилось. So this would be умну встанливу топ не годилося. So this would be something like умну, like умный. In Russian would be like smart. But in this case, this would be smart and hardworking. Топ. To бы. So this again looks like one word, but it isn't. It's to бы. This is a shortened form. Не годилося. So for the hardworking one, for a person who is smart, this goat isn't necessary simply because he's already hardworking. You don't have to push him, right? You have to move him. You don't have to push him to do certain things. This was a difficult text. This really was difficult. It has two sentences that I kind of don't understand. But let's move on. It does look pretty though. Okay, again, inconsistencies. Again, this one contains the iota, right? The I desetorichne, the Russian name, but there is no iota there in Russian. Or it doesn't come from Greek, it doesn't come from Latin, meaning that the choice was completely arbitrary. And then we go on to the last one that we're going to cover. Let's see. So we have the word or the letter T in Old Church Slavonic, or T in Old Church Slavonic actually, because it wasn't palatalized. So T. But in Old East Slavic, this became T. So it changed from T to T to Tse, or Tse in modern Russian. And we can see the different forms. So we see two women, different forms. Again, then we have the Polish ones. or the Polish one. And we can see a lot of beautiful pictures. Look at this. So we can see a city in the distance with some flowers, a beautiful church, and some other objects. So let's cover them first. First one, this is flowers, right? So цветы. So it's not like in modern Russian цветы, but the stress is different. It's more archaic. So цветы. This means flowers, same thing like a modern Russian. And the word itself comes from цвет, meaning color, plus ok, which is a suffix. And that comes from Proto-Slavic květe. And the k, ts shift is a very common shift that you'll see in Slavic. This is known as the second Slavic palatalization, in which the k sound eventually became a ts sound in many Slavic languages. Not all of them though, but in many. And in Proto-Slavic, květe actually meant bright color, even like a light or a flower as well. So the meaning changed just a little bit. And then we have this is probably one of the most beautiful pictures. Ksenia, I completely agree with you. This looks amazing. It's a church. And церковь, right? So in modern Russian, it means the same thing. There's going to be church. And in Old East Slavic, it had different meanings as well. It didn't only mean church, but it also meant the whole Christian world. So the whole Christian church as a whole, right? Not only the building, but the people as well. And that comes from Proto-Slavic cerky, which comes from Germanic. So this is a borrowing. It didn't come from Slavic originally, but it came from Proto-West Germanic, kirika, which took it from ancient Greek. The origin of the letter is gamel. I think that's gamel in Hebrew, right? Yeah, it is. It is. Oh, I forgot the origin of the letter. Thank you, mister, for reminding me. So, cerkov. So this comes from Proto-Germanic, which then comes from ancient Greek. Kyriakon, or Kyriakon in ancient Greek. So this was borrowed, probably introduced when Kirill and Methodi, so Cyril and Methodius were spreading the word of God, and they gifted the Slavs the gift of writing, right? But the origin of the letter, we don't know. It's kind of unknown. Oh, tzadi, okay. Yeah, it does. It comes from that one, I believe. So we don't really know where this letter comes from. We also don't know, at least the name of the letter, right? We also don't know the origin of the name of that letter, because we don't know the name at all. There's some suggestions, some proposals. One of them is that it comes from Old Church Slavonic tsi, which is the same word. And it was this particle that was used, and it meant something like really or what. It could also mean li, which is a particle that's added to questions in most Slavic languages, with which you can turn a normal sentence into a question. It might also be related to Ukrainian chi, in which it also means li or and. But coming back to cerkov, excuse me, there were actually a lot of different names for churches. So before the adoption of cerkov, there were actually some other words as well. One of them is božnica. And božnica comes from Old East Slavic boženica, and this was borrowed into Latvian. So Latvian still uses a descendant of this word. And my Latvian is terrible, but it's going to be something like baznīca. And in modern Latvian, this still means something like church. I think it's the only word for church. There might be a different one as well. But it's still used there. While in Russian, božnica isn't used anymore. There was also a second option or second word, which was capisce, which kind of sounds Italian. But this nowadays only means pagan temple. But before, it was used before Christian times. And then once Christianity spread in, 988, something like that, with the baptizing of Vladimir, this was exclusively used for pagan temples. So kapišče, I believe. In Polish, bożnica is an alternative name for synagogue. Oh, krszk. Nice to have you, man. Cześć. And this word kapiszcze comes from kape, which is an Uyghur word, like a Bulgar word, and it means idol. And nowadays, kape also means idol, but pagan idols, right? So the etymology is really interesting, kind of complicated. Yeah, kapiszcze. And then this one. This is another very interesting word. I don't think most Russians will know what this is, but the history is extremely extensive. So it's chata, and it had a different form in Old Slavonic, or actually in Old East Slavic, and that was chanta. And chanta is in Old Slavonic meant a small coin. Just a sec. I just have to keep drinking, otherwise I'll evaporate. So, in Old East Slavic, it meant small coin, and that came from Gothic, quintus, which itself took it from Latin, centus. And it had a different meaning as well. So in Old East Slavic, it could mean any kind of money, not only small coins, but it could also mean just any type of money. It could even mean like a plank, like the thing on the ground. It could even mean something like that, or an ornament, or many, many different things. But we can see that this doesn't really look like money, right? This just looks like some kind of ornament. It does look like an ornament. And that's actually what it is. And in, how do you have the guts to do this? Because I love it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty nervous every single time when I stream. But I really love this. So if you guys enjoy this, please let me know, because I love to talk about this stuff. So, chata. It has a different meaning. Nice to have you, by the way, man. Guys, if you love Ottoman Turkish, please check out his channel. He has some amazing videos on consonants in Ultra Slavonic, or Boże, in Ottoman Turkish, and vowels in Ottoman Turkish. Please check him out. He has some amazing stuff. So, chata, meaning in English, the word is tsada, something like that, and it's this typical Russian jewelry in the shape of a turned over crescent, which was typically made of gold or silver. And if you're Orthodox, and you have an Orthodox icon, you can probably see this, because it is placed at the bottom of this riza, which is what we covered before, this vestment, right? Just a sec. Riza, this one. So it would be placed right here, something like that. Let's move. Zata. So placed at the bottom of this riza, and it was used as a part of icon decoration, right? In the Eastern Orthodox Church. So not in the Latin Church, but only in the Eastern Orthodox, and I also believe the Eastern Catholic churches. And if you own like an icon of the Holy Trinity or Jesus or Virgin Mary, you will probably see this, because a lot of them have this symbol. And only the most highly venerated saints of the Orthodox Church carry this thing, right? This ornament, right? Like John the Baptist, and you have like Saint Nicholas, which is the guy that yeeted Arius, right? He slapped him into infinity, and Jesus and Mary and other saints. And funny, I was just remembering, grivna wasn't using the meaning of jewelry, and now it's currency. Yeah. So it basically symbolizes eternal life. Sometimes some kind of suffering that went or was combined with this eternal life. And it symbolizes like this high rank of saintdom, right, in the kingdom of God. And So where does this come from, you might ask? And where does this shape come from? And this actually comes from something that Ksenia and Dog already talked about, and that is grivna. And grivna it's known as a torque in modern English, and it was this gold or silver or bronze, sometimes necklace that was worn around the neck of people in Kievan Rus. So in the olden days of Russia, where there were a lot of principalities and the first, well, decentralized kingdom in the east, right? Kievan Rus. People would wear this around their necks. They would also wear this in Scandinavia. There's also some Celtic ones, but it was a pretty common type of jewelry. Men wore this, women didn't really, had more jewelry, stuff like that. And then from that word, grivna, came another word, which is what you guys already talked about in chat, and that's this unit of weight. And not only a unit of weight, but also a unit, or a coin, right? So in the Kievan Rus days, they had different types of coins, and every coin had a different name. And one of these coins was grivna, which was, I don't exactly remember how much it was worth, but it was used until the 16th century. So when the monetary system of Russia back then, well, almost Russia, was reformed, grivna was a very common coin that was used. And you might ask, where does the name grivna come from? Kind of interesting, because grivna means mane, like the mane of a lion. That's where it comes from. And Danil, that's a perfect thing. So in Novgorod, kuna was used. And kuna is this animal. I don't recall the English name. It's this little animal. It's cute and fluffy, extremely quick. I don't remember the English name. Wait, I'll look it up. Kuna. Martin. And for all you guys that are interested, a weasel, a martin, kunica in modern Russian. In Croatia, we still use that coin. Well, not the coin from Novgorod, right? But we use kunas. So 100 kunas are one kuna is like one currency. And every kuna is made up of 100 lipa. So we still use it. It's really, really interesting. So one kuna is one coin in Croatia. But yeah, Novgorod it was used. So the history of this this symbol or object is extremely interesting and kind of complicated, but it's really nice. So by the way, if you read old text, you'll probably not encounter it in this form. You'll probably not encounter it as chata or tsata. You'll probably encounter it with an eh sound. So chata or tsata. Sometimes it was written with a ch as well. Okay, then the next one, let me just zoom in. We see tsievnica with a yat. So this was just a different name for a type of flute, and the flute in question was svirel, which is the one we covered before, like this typical Eastern Slavic flute that was used, but also had different meanings. So it could also mean like a string for a musical instrument, and it could also mean a lyre, like the Greek instrument. And it comes from Proto-Slavic, tseve, which is a tube or a spool. And modern Russian doesn't use this. So there are also, at least not that I know, any modern Russian descendants or cognates. One option would be something which in Russian is known as tsivyo, which might be related. Exactly, Daniel. And that would be like a hand guard, which is this part of a gun or a rifle you keep your hands on, right? Tsivyo. That might be related. And then this one, the interesting thing is that this is read as tsep, But in modern Russian, this wouldn't contain yer. This would be written with a yer. So цепь, which in modern Russian means chain. And in this picture, it obviously also means chain. It's related. So yeah, in chain, but цепь with a yer actually meant something different. And that would be a flail. And a flail is this weapon that was used in the Middle Ages to smash someone's head in. Extremely deadly and цепь. And it comes from Proto-Slavic as well, which is цепа, meaning stick or flail. So the meaning changed a little bit. But this is basically the same as in modern Russian, only you write it with a мягкий знак, right? With a yer instead of a yer. Deadly to the user. Exactly, if you don't know how to use it. The text. It's not going to be an easy one, but let's go. So, каковы сутьцы в письменном зрислозе? So, каковы would be which. Суть, right? The modern Russian doesn't... it says never palatalized in modern Russian. Excuse me. Цепь. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mister, and thank you, Doc. So, каковы суть ци? Just post a link to your iTunes. Thank you, man. Каковы суть ци в письменном зрислозе? Which means, which are ци? So this is the name of the letter, right? Which are? As you guys might already know, for non-Russian natives, Russian doesn't conjugate the verb to be. So I am, you are, everything is есть. Я есть, ты есть. Archaic modern Russian uses суть, which doesn't only mean essence, but it can also mean we are, you are, they are. But in modern Church Slavonic and obviously in Old Church Slavonic, all of this was conjugated, like in most Slavic languages. So каковы суть, it's conjugated, ци. Which are the ци в письменном зрислозе. So look for it in the written syllable. This is again slog, second palatalization, слозе. Next one, в благодарстве всяк. So in благодарстве, meaning gratefulness. In gratefulness, every, всяк. So the K is flying, meaning that's placed behind it. Всяк буде Богу мнозе. So in gratefulness, everyone has to be grateful to God, right? Буди Богу мнозе в благодарстве всяк. So everyone has to be grateful for the humility and gratefulness of God. Then we see the shortened form of церковь or церковь. So you can see the ye. This is the shortened form. That's why it has a titlo, right? Nomina sacra. In church, учащай, чаще, meaning more frequent, right? Чаще. So go to church more often. This is the imperative. Go to church more often. And this is kind of difficult because it says та небо земное. В церковь учащай та небо земное. So this would mean something like that, right? Та небо, sky, земное, of earth. So go to church more often, the earthly sky. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but yeah. In dialects, we have the softsa. Oh, that's nice. Тя. В светях, светах жительства рассмотряй травное. This is another very difficult sentence. Now this would be в in цветях, so in flowers, жительство. So this could mean something like residence, right? Like in modern Russian, but it could also mean something like existence. So in flowers, existence or residence, or maybe be surrounded by flowers. рассмотряй. So this is the same. Look at, or you shall look at, травное. So look at the of grass or meadow or something like that. It's really complicated. And this kind of looks like a mistake because it kind of looks like a k with a t, right? So maybe he made a mistake, but this is probably something like такого. So такого есть цепь. So like that is the chain. Такого есть цепь с цепляй добродетель. So цеплять with, attach, something like virtue, добродетель. So like that is the chain with which you might attach virtue to yourself, right? To your soul, being, существование, like existing, something like that. Oh, excuse me, Daniel, you're right. Такова. Такова есть цепь. Sometimes my Croatian accents slip through, and that's why I don't read it on point. Excuse me. So next one would be будущий небом с... да, будущий небом святыми владетель. So будущий, something like you will be, небом, with the sky, с, with, святыми, this is a shortened form for holy ones, because it's holy, so it has to be shortened. Святыми владетель. So владетель would be something like master, right? Something like ruler, and not emperor, but autocrat, maybe like even like a ruler, basically. So that would be something like you will be with the saints ruling the sky, right? And then the next one would be в темницу духа мощно ти играти. So this would be in the свирель, so the flute of, so this is the genitive, of the soul, you will be able to play. So you can, or wait, no. Духа. So yeah, problem is мощно in this context probably means something like мощь. So sila, something like strength. So with the flute of the soul, you will be able to play loudly or with strength or something like that. I don't think this means like be able to. It just thinks with strength. You will play with strength. And then the next one would be asce. This is a very common Old Church Slavonic word, also used in modern Church Slavonic. It means if. Asce mudru pieśń. So if a wise song, igraši slagate. So if the wise song, you shall create. So you shall create a wise song, which probably also means something like it's connected with existing as a human, right? Most of these things come down to either God or you being a good human being, simply because this was written for the son of Peter the Great, right? Had a big task in front of him, he had to rule the empire and so on and so on. So maybe like a good song will lead you, or you will play, you have to play a good song for your people, something like that. And then this one, не красны песни от человек грешных. Oh, this is a very interesting one, which means не, so not, красный. So красная in modern Russian, in the end it was done for nothing. Yeah, I mean, you're right. But we didn't know that, right? I mean, he didn't know that. So не красный, красное in modern Russian means red. But in archaic Russian, or even a little bit in modern Russian, but it's not used as much, it means beautiful. So, не красные песни, not beautiful songs. От from человек, shortened form, person or human. Грешных. So, songs created by sinners are not beautiful. You shouldn't listen to them. Something like they're not worth your time. Don't listen to them because you might get corrupted, right? Your soul might be corrupted or get corrupted. And then this word, yegda, this is again very common in Church Slavonic. This would be something like when. So yegda не имут. So when they don't have, иметь. This is again not used in modern Russian. Modern Russian doesn't decline this verb anymore. They wouldn't say я имею это. No, they would say something like у меня есть, right? So when they don't have, учение утрешных. So this would be something like the learning, teaching, учение, soothing or comforting, right? So when they don't have the correct teaching, they will grow up никакие, right? They will be no ones, and they will create songs which will propagate some kind of impurity or something like that. It's all very metaphysical. Егда не имут учений утешных, of the, so this is the genitive plural. So учение of the soothing or comforting. So yeah, I think that's it. That's the 4 ones we had to cover. Let's see. Did we cover everything? Not to own, not to have. But in Russian, like, у меня есть это, да, you can also say, like, I have this. У меня есть книга, I have a book. Or I own a book. Да. Phoenix, Filon. Yeah, I think we did everything. Beautiful drawings, this one. It's very interesting how many loanwords there are, right? Or how many calques. So it's not only Slavic words, but every period of the Russian language. Obviously, the Russian language was affected by a lot of different factors. It wasn't only Slavic peoples, it was Uralic peoples, it was Mongolic peoples, etc., etc., etc. Do you have enough насущность to make the next page without preparation? The thing is, I kind of have to go anyway, because at 10 o'clock I'm busy. I have to do my next project, not streaming, obviously. And I don't think that would be a very smart idea, simply because I don't know the etymology of all of these things by heart. So I'll have to prepare this, which will be another 15 hours probably. But I love doing this. Like, this is literally what I love doing, so it's not a problem. About the streams, I do want to tell you guys, I decided to do this on a weekly basis. So the last one was like 4 days ago. From now on, I'm going to be streaming every Sunday. So every Sunday at 6 p.m. GMT, I'm going to do this. So we'll cover this. This will be done within a month. We still have quite a lot of letters to go. So ch. The next one would be sh, sh, yer, yeri, yer, yat, you, ya, ksa, psa, th, ijitsa, right? So there's still quite a lot of letters we have to cover. These ones will be interesting because I already read all of these texts, but it doesn't contain any words with this letter, simply because, again, it wasn't Slavic, right? So it only contains Greek saints, and then this one, again, it's not Slavic, so it will have again Fyodor or Fyodor in modern Russian. Ijitsa, psa. This one is interesting because some Slavic words were written with a psa, but I'm not going to give that away. So you guys will have to wait. So from now on, every Sunday at 6 p.m. GMT, I will stream. I'm gonna be the next part. After that, I have more stuff if you guys are interested. So I just want to thank all of the people that helped me out, Fondog and my Greek friends as well, Leo and Julius. Some other people that helped me out with the in the pre-revolutionary group. Then I really want to thank my patrons, because even though I absolutely love doing this, preparation takes a lot of time. So they basically allow me to spend more time on this stuff. If you guys want to support the channel, through which you can also join the Discord, link is in the description. It's completely optional. You don't have to do that. But if you want to, you'll get some behind the scenes stuff like projects and texts. And you can join the Discord server in which we talk about this day and night. Grisha and Mr. Exactly. So will you do ch next time? Exactly. So next time is going to be the 4 next letters. It's going to be ch. The Czech spelling like Polish. Ch, sh, sh, I, yer. That's going to be the 4 next letters that we're going to cover. Are there any more questions? Anything you guys want to know? Anything maybe about the stream like today? Some things which are not, you guys don't understand quite yet, maybe? I'll just grab some water. If not, thank you guys for watching. I love doing this. I really do. So if there are any questions, this stream will be kept up just like the other ones. Just write a comment, or I post community posts quite often. So just post it there. I would love to answer all of your questions. Again, thank you very much for coming. It really means a lot. Спасибо вам большое. Спасибо всем. And amazing. Thank you so much. So if you guys didn't hear it from someone else, I'm proud of you. And спасибо. Увидимся. Давайте, пока. Oh, does Bosnian have more Arabic loanwords? It does. It does. They have a lot of Arabic loans, a lot of Turkic loans, something like hefta, which is used in Bosnia, which means weak, and a lot of different ones. But yeah, Ksenia, спасибо тебе. Nicolas, спасибо. Mr. Everyone, take care. Увидимся. Давайте, пока.